Welcome everybody to another roundtable of the DMU. Joined here by some familiar faces. We've got, of course, Eric, Bruce, Scott, and myself. Uh, we're going to jump right into our first topic here. We wanted to discuss what's better for the narrative, Nat 1's or Nat 20's. Scott, this was
This was my
fully
idea.
your idea.
And a
Hot
good
take.
and a good idea it was.
Natural ones are more important. The lows are more important than the high highs for a narrative. Failure is much more interesting than grand success. Um, Not complete failure. And in a previous video, we've talked about table wipes, but um, the bulk of human history uh, and storytelling all starts from where something went bad, and then you fix the problem afterwards. So that's why one of my top reasons for enjoying natural ones more than natural 20s, assuming it doesn't result in a complete table wipe. So yeah, Eric, thoughts?
I agree. You can take a lot from a nat 20 who does like doing double damage, and with me, I allow my players to roll crap the heck out of a nat 1 or a nat 20. So I do a little differently. When that's rolled at the table, a 1 or 20, it kind of the improv kind of takes over. Damage is important, but it's really not that important. It's like the outcome, from that roll, which I find is more important. But I agree. There's been some epic nat 20s, where you slice through the goblin, but the nat 1s make for a better story. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree also. I think Nat ones are a lot more fun. I know there's criticism in some circles where they say, the characters are supposed to be hero. You shouldn't punish them for rolling a one, or they shouldn't screw up that bad. But I disagree with that. I think it's not a matter of punishing someone, it's a matter of advancing the story.
Yeah.
And yeah,
In Star Wars, how many nat 1s does Han Solo roll?
yeah,
All the time. The Falcon, the hyperdrive is down. He's running through the corridors of the Death Star. He runs into the stormtroopers. His charisma rolls with Princess Leia, nat 1s all the time. And yet, who do we root for in Star Wars? Chewbacca and Han, right?
mhm.
And it's those nat 1s that make him such an amazing character.
And I think without the natural ones, without the problems, without the pitfalls in the way, you don't set up the highs then don't feel as high. If everyone is always rolling well, it's boring. If your heroes are always knocking it out of the park, you don't have struggle and you don't have strife. And Star Wars, if we're using that analogy, is I think a lot of people's opinions only as good as it is because Empire Strikes Back happened and Empire Strikes Back ended on such a downer. So
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Eric?
Uh, I agree with a lot of stuff here, but I'm going to try and be a bit of the outlier and say that I don't fully agree.
Bum, bum, bum.
Uh, I really find it depends on the situation. Like we were talking a lot about combat here, and I tend to gloss over a lot of the nat 20s and nat 1s in combat just to keep combat moving. So if we're talking about for the narrative, and it's those nat 20s that come up on story beats and social encounters, I tend to reward nat 20s a lot more than natural ones because I find it harder to fail forward than to succeed.
I think that's where yes and no but come in.
For sure.
Like you can still have a fail, like even like a failed roll. Like if the DC is 15 and you roll a 14, well, it's not quite meeting the DC, but yet it's not quite a fail. It's pretty damn close. So quite often I'll go no but. Same with like an at
Absolutely.
one. Like yeah, you fall on your ass and you slide across the room. However, give it some flavor as to how that was cool. And then once again, opening up that interpretation, that improv, to make that nat 1 feel awesome.
but Eric does bring up a good point, and that's sometimes you're in the library and you want to advance the plot, and you almost as a DM need them to roll high so that you can give them the lore dump that is important. So then I think it's a matter of being creative in that the lore dump still happens, but maybe because they rolled the nat one, an agent of the other side also happens to show up by the rules of probability and listen in on the fact that you got that
Or the
information.
key page has been ripped out of the book.
Yeah, and now you got to go look for it.
Yeah. I think if you got a lore dump, then that the game depends on, then I don't know if you should roll for that specifically,
True.
because if they fail, they're stuck.
Yeah.
But adding another consequence like an assassin sneaking in or whatever,
Mhm.
that's a way to keep the story moving even with a natural one.
Or you convince the person that's giving you that information to tell you them still with a nat one. But there's just one other consequence. You don't know what that other person is going to be talking about to who.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You find the book in the library, you roll your nat one, it's in a language you don't understand. And so now you have to find somebody who speaks that ancient, kobold or whatever it is.
And now we've got more interesting
Yeah.
happenstance, right?
Yeah.
Now you've got another problem to solve while not impeding
Yeah.
what you
No,
wanted to
no
happen.
but.
Yeah.
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 Anybody else? Nat 20s? I agree. I agree with Nat 1s. I think Nat 1s are awesome, but Nat 20s are awesome too.
They are.
They can really change the flow of combat, turning the tides, or even like once again, just that Nat 20 can, just change the energy at the table.
Yeah, there's definitely a rise in excitement when a 20 is rolled. Yeah.
There's no bigger moment in the actual plays that a lot of us watch at home when they need that perfect roll in combat or in some other thing, and they manage to score it, and everyone at the table cheers,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. I always think to Dimension 20 in their use of what they call the box of doom,
Yeah.
Right.
and that's any really important role. And when you see a nat 20 come up on that little screen that's pointed down into their little box, it's like uh, chaos erupts because it's the best possible outcome, and it's just amazing. Uh, it's the same thing with a natural one. It's quite the opposite, and yeah, not sure what I'm trying to say there.
There really is no yes or right or wrong answer. Like, this is a game of numbers, and this is a game of role playing. Like we all succeed in life, and we all fail in life, right? And that's just us rolling in that one, rolling in that 20, and we should embrace those roles. Like I myself, on the channel, I fail with the channel all the time. We were just talking on the arcane table. We were just talking about how in the early days of the channel the videos are not good. They're not. There's a lot of nat ones in those first videos. Fast forward 10 months later, I'm really proud to say that there is the occasional nat 20 for production wise or for directing wise or for just, content. And I'm really proud of those nat 20s. And that's just part of life, just like D&D, right? Or whatever
Hmm.
tabletop. Our characters they want to feel alive. And that's gauged by their successes and their fails.
Hmm.
Has there been a recent or maybe even historical nat 20 or nat 1 in your actual play? It's the language of magic. Do you have any stories of those that you can think of? Well, okay. While you ponder that, now how about Eric? Do you have a recent nat 1 or nat 20 in any of your games?
No word of lie, I had a long-term campaign in Prince Albert, which was several years ago, and it was broken up into two groups who were eventually merging. And the one group, it was two half orcs, and they were in prison. They're like these water cages. So like their necks were underwater and stuff like that, and there's the tide and the water was coming up and stuff like that. And they had to escape. And Dalton rolled 6 nat 20s in 7 rolls. It was unbelievable. You've never seen anybody jump up and become more animated in that 10, 15 minutes than Dalton. And as a DM, I could do nothing. Like all the elves were upon them, trying to suppress them from escaping. And he was literally, I am Spartan, or this is Sparta all over the place. And as a DM, it was okay, Dalton, take it. And it was just such an epic moment. That will never happen again. 6 20s in 7 rolls. It
Hmm.
was phenomenal.
How about a nat 1? That
No.
was epic? No,
Oh, nat ones?
that you could think of?
Not overly. Like nat ones happen, and I always try to embrace them. And I give my players the ability to flub a nat one as much as they want. And I like the people I've played with for a long time, so they know how far they can and can't go. And like if they want to flub up royally, do it. I'll encourage it, and I like to think I'm strong enough as a DM, somebody who does a lot of improv, that I can just roll with whatever they give me. Yeah,
Mhm.
but you got to embrace them. You got to embrace those roles.
I had a game recently where I was rolling with disadvantage, and I rolled two nat 20s,
Yeah, nice.
and that was really good,
Yep.
exciting for me, not for them. But then the very next roll by the player that was in the combat rolled with advantage and got two nat ones.
Oh,
And it
nice.
was just the combination was just
Yeah,
perfect.
polar ends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did it play out? Did they get their butt whipped or
Oh yeah, it threw them back quite a bit. They ended up winning in the end.
cool?
It was a battle against a lich, and well, the lich did escape in the end.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But epic
Epic.
storytelling.
Yeah.
Like 5 years from now, when they're around a table with somebody else, they'll talk about that moment and they'll go, "Holy crap! Do you remember when?"
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott.
I had a historical game where contested grapple check and meet and beat, right? But instead, both the character and the NPC that I was running had the same strength modifier, and I rolled a natural 20, and the player rolled a natural 20.
Very cool.
And so you want to, okay, you throw the rules out the window,
Yep.
and then you go to rollies because the picture that I had in my head was Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior with
Nice.
their doing the test of strength.
Oh, nice. The mini ring.
Yeah, above the ring and going back and forth,
WrestleMania 4.
right? And it's locked in that minute. And so then we had to go. We rolled off rather than meet or beat. And eventually, the player character, or not eventually, the next roll, the player character won. But that moment of being locked in a feat of strength against each other, I think was just.
So did you like role play that? Was it
Yeah.
was it like
Oh, that's you do have to describe it, right? Because
absolutely, yeah.
that's the visual that comes to mind, and it's like even if you weren't a wrestling fan, it was iconic. So yeah, no, that's certainly what we were talking about at the table.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Eric, wrap it up.
I was going to say something actually very
yeah.
similar to what Bruce did here. Just in my Wednesday game, we actually just finished wrapping up our campaign, the Princes of the Apocalypse. And as they're fighting the final boss, Imix, the from the elemental plane of fire, had disadvantage on an attack and rolled two nat 20s. And it was at that
Nice.
point that he did so much damage to the entire party, they finally started to feel fear,
Oh,
which was
yep.
nice
As a
Yep.
minor action,
Put the
yeah,
fear of
yeah,
God in them.
yeah.
yeah, because they've been stomping through this campaign without issue for so long that finally they're facing off against something that might actually be a threat to them, which was really cool.
Yeah. Refer to our total party kill video.
Not those guys, man. I had a hard time challenging them. But then on the other side with the natural ones, I have not a specific moment in mind, but a player who just absolutely loves the chaos that natural ones brings, and he's so excited when he rolls a one that
Yeah, embrace it.
I just love the role play he does with it. I've been playing with him for 5 years now or so you kind of get used to it. It's great.
Related question, but not quite the same topic. Has anyone yet at their table had uh, uh, not channel divinity, the invoking of your god as a cleric, and you have to roll below your level. What's the spell again? Divine intervention, and
Mhm.
have it work out. Yeah, has anyone been divinely
I've used that
intervented?
loosey goosey.
Yeah, okay.
Like once again, like if you're in that moment and you're reaching out and you need to reach out, I'll improv that. Like
So you'll allow it without the roll.
yes, I'll still
Okay.
have them roll depending on how the deity is going to respond.
Okay, fair.
But still, like once again, if the DC is set at 15 or whatever it is, and they roll a 13, well, maybe they just don't fully hear, the right path, but they're kind of feel the right direction, or whatever it be. And so once again, but yeah, like
That's again a pivotal role that could decide, a major success or
yeah.
a major fail. So
But in a situation like that, once again, like I understand how the rules work.
yeah,
Yeah, screw the rules. This is important. Let's role play it.
fair.
I'm gonna say yes and no on that because with things like divine intervention, that's where you're like asking to bring back a dead teammate.
Yep.
Like
Or
that's not going to happen without that divine intervention. You don't have the resources for revivify or raise dead or whatever it may be.
But once again, it's flexible. Like once again, if the DC is 15 and the cleric roll or the paladin rolls a 13, okay, maybe the dead in question doesn't rise from the grave, but maybe there's that spark of energy that revives one death save.
yeah.
Or whatever it be, or like to believe, like from the Princess Bride, like there's dead and there's mostly dead. Maybe there's just enough left in that corpse to go back to survive another day and to revive in the future. I don't know. Again, it comes, it's
And I think you can have those two viewpoints. You can have a DM who really wants
absolutely.
to,
Mhm.
if the dice don't suffice, then I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. And the DM that says, pretty close. Describe to me how it might work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
Yeah.
there's room for both.
absolutely.
The dice tell the story, and if you're not going to listen to the dice, then what are you rolling them for?
Yeah, that's just it. There's no one right way to play D&D. The dice are very important. Don't get me wrong, and I agree with what you're saying. And like once again, we were talking about just this is a conversation about nat ones, nat 20s.
Yeah.
Successes and fails. That's just it. If it's a nat one, adios. That PC is gone. That character is gone. But if it's a nat 20, well then let's figure it out. Let's improv the crap out of it.
I played
Epic
with
moments. Yeah.
I played with a group once where their table tradition was on a nat one, the players would come up with three consequences, and then you'd roll the die, and that would be the consequence you'd go with. And it was a good way to get all the players
Involved.
involved.
That's good
That's a
ideas
good
too.
idea.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun doing it
Yeah.
that way.
Cool. Just kind of wrap things up here. It sounds like what's better for the narrative, whether it's nat ones or nat 20s. I don't think you're going to have narrative without one or the other. They're both equally as important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Epic moments. That's what we want.
Nobody remembers the 2s and nobody remembers the 19s. But the 1s and the 20s forever.
Yeah.
Sure.
Awesome. Any closing thoughts?
Um, roll them dice.
Yeah.
Don't fudge them.
Yeah. So.